My daughter left me at the airport at midnight. San Jose International was almost quiet by then. The kind of quiet that makes every suitcase wheel sound lonely. I stood outside arrivals with one old suitcase, a dying phone, and the foolish hope that my daughter was just running late. When she finally answered, she did not say, "Dad, I'm sorry." She said, "Dad, just find a hotel tonight." Before I could ask why, I heard her mother-in-law whisper behind her, "He'll ruin the investor breakfast." Then the call ended. I stood under the curbside lights while other families hugged, laughed, and went home. My daughter had not forgotten me. She had decided I did not belong in the version of her family she wanted them to see. Welcome to Final Act Revenge. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Please take care of your health while you listen. Because they thought I was just an old man with a suitcase. Until their airline shares meeting started. My name is Brant Ferguson. I am 74 years old, and for most of my life, airports were not places where I waited to be picked up. They were places I studied. People think airports are about planes. They are not. They are about trust. A mother trusts the gate agent with her child. An old man trusts his daughter to come when she says she will. I spent 40 years in aviation safety, mostly on the ground, where the important work happens before anyone claps for a landing. Runway operations, ground systems, passenger assistance, emergency drills, maintenance audits, work people ignore until something goes wrong. Then everyone wants the old man with the checklist. I was never a pilot. I worked behind the terminal, under fluorescent lights, beside radios that never stopped talking. In aviation, the best work is the kind no passenger ever notices. My wife, Elaine, saved the boarding pass from our first trip together after I retired. San Diego to Portland. Just two people with no clipboard, no headset, and no one calling my name over a radio. Madison was little then. She drew a crooked star on the back and said, "So, Mom can always find her way home." I kept it in my wallet after Elaine passed. Memory needs something to hold on to when your house gets too quiet. Madison used to love my airport stories. "Dad, do you fix airplanes?" "No, sweetheart. I fix the things that keep people safe before they reach the airplane." She liked that answer. At least, she used to. Then she married into the Harrington family. Knox Harrington was polished and careful with every sentence. His family had money in airport hospitality, passenger services, and travel technology. They talked about aviation like a market. I talked about it like a promise. That difference grew larger over time. Madison began correcting me gently before dinners. "Dad, maybe don't bring up old safety incidents unless someone asks. Dad, just wear the Navy jacket. The old airport coat looks tired." She never said she was ashamed. She did not have to. Some children do not push parents away with anger. They polish the edges off them until nothing familiar is left. I told myself she was helping me fit in. A father can lie to himself very politely when he is afraid of losing the last person who still calls him Dad. What Madison did not know was that my old aviation life had never fully left me. Years before, during a ground operations crisis, I helped Westward Air Group fix a procedure that could have hurt passengers if people kept rushing. The company was short on cash, so part of my compensation came as long-term voting shares tied to a safety covenant. I kept those shares quietly because I knew what happens when careless people control systems that carry families through the sky. So when Madison started talking about an important Harrington weekend in San Jose, I listened. Investor breakfast, passenger services, a partnership, a meeting about airline shares. I did not ask questions yet. I packed my Navy jacket, placed Elaine's old boarding pass back in my wallet, and boarded the flight believing my daughter still wanted me there. I thought Madison was only embarrassed by my old stories. I did not realize she was learning to be embarrassed by me. The Harrington family did not insult people loudly. That would have been too honest. They used softer tools. A pause before answering. A smile that arrived half a second late. A compliment with a little hook hidden under it. Knox Harrington was my son-in-law, and I will say this for him. He knew how to look respectful while making you feel unnecessary. He worked as an executive for Harrington Meridian, the family company. Airport lounges, passenger services, travel memberships, hospitality partnerships, the kind of business where people discuss comfort without ever carrying anyone's bag. His father, Alden Harrington, was the chairman. Alden did not raise his voice because he had spent too many years watching people lower theirs first. His wife, Celia, handled image. That was not her official title. It was just what everyone understood. Celia could look at a table setting and know which fork would impress investors. She could look at a guest list and know which person should be seated farther from the cameras. I learned that last part slowly. Madison had been married to Knox for 7 years by then. At first, she still sounded like my daughter when she called. She asked if I was eating right. She laughed when I told her the grocery store had moved the cereal aisle again, as if a national emergency had occurred. Then the calls changed. Not all at once. They became shorter, cleaner, managed. "Dad, we're having dinner with Knox's parents this weekend. Maybe don't wear the old airport coat." I laughed the first time. "What's wrong with the coat?" "It just looks tired." "So do I." "Dad, please." That little word became her way of asking me to shrink. Please don't tell long stories. Please don't bring up old safety incidents. Please don't joke about rich people and their water glasses. Please don't make Celia nervous. I asked once, "What makes Celia nervous?" Madison sighed. "She just likes things polished." I almost said, "So did airplane floors before someone slipped on them." But I let it go. Fathers let too many things go, because they mistake silence for peace. The San Jose weekend was supposed to be important for Knox's family. Madison sent me the hotel address 3 days before my flight, along with a schedule that looked more like a corporate retreat than a family visit. Investor breakfast, private luncheon, passenger services presentation, airline shares review, proxy confirmation pending. That last line made me stop. Westward Air Group. I knew that name. I had known it before Knox ever learned to say market expansion with a straight face. But I did not ask Madison about it. Not yet. I wanted to believe she had invited me because she wanted her father there, not because my past had quietly appeared inside her in-law's future. My granddaughter, Avery, sent me a voice message that afternoon. "Grandpa, bring the old airplane story. Mom says it's boring, but I like it." That little voice got me on the plane. Not investor breakfast, not Madison's schedule. Avery. She was 12, bright-eyed, and still young enough to think family meant people showed up because they loved you. Before I left, Madison called again. Her voice was tight. "Dad, when you get here, just keep things simple, okay? I am bringing 1 suitcase, Maddie. Simpler than that, and I'll arrive as a roomer." She did not laugh. That told me something. In the background, I heard Knox. "Tell him the breakfast is not casual." Madison covered the phone, but not enough. Then Celia's voice came through, smooth as glass. "We can honor him privately. We don't need to center him publicly." There it was. Not cruelty, not exactly. Something colder. Placement. They were already deciding where I should fit before I had even boarded the flight. Madison came back on the line. "Dad, you know how they are." "Yes," I said. "I'm starting to." She was quiet. For 1 second, I thought she might say, "I'm sorry." Instead, she said, "Just text me when you land." So I did what old fathers do. I packed the Navy jacket. I put Elaine's old boarding pass in my wallet. I checked my medication twice, and I told myself my daughter was only nervous because the weekend mattered. That is the mercy we give our children. We explain away the first small betrayals, so we do not have to face the larger one waiting behind them. I boarded that flight thinking my daughter needed me in San Jose. I did not know her new family had already decided where I would not be allowed to stand. After my daughter hung up, the airport did not suddenly become cruel. That was the strange part. The building stayed the same. The lights still hummed, the automatic doors still opened and closed. A cleaning cart rolled past with a soft squeak in one wheel, and somewhere behind me, a tired family was laughing because their grandmother had packed cookies in a shoebox. Life kept moving. Mine just stopped at the curb. I stood there a little longer than I should have, holding my phone like it might apologize if I waited. It did not. The battery was down to 7%. My suitcase handle felt cold in my palm. The night air at San Jose International had that dry bite California gets after dark. Not freezing, but sharp enough to remind old bones that they are old. I walked back inside to baggage claim, because my checked bag had not appeared. That was the bag with my medication organizer, my navy jacket, and the shirt Madison had asked me to wear. I found the carousel nearly empty. One red duffel went around and around, like it had nowhere better to be. A woman behind the counter looked up at me over her glasses. Her name tag said Della Morris. She had silver hair pinned back, a purple scarf, and the kind of face that had seen too many travelers try not to cry in public. "Missing bag?" she asked. "Looks that way." "Family picking you up?" I almost said yes. That is how deep hope can go. Even after the truth, your mouth still reaches for the old answer. "No," I said. "Not tonight." Della studied me for half a second. Not nosy, human. Then she slid a bottle of water across the counter. "Take this, honey. Airports after midnight show you exactly who still answers the phone." I looked at the bottle. A small thing. But small kindness becomes large when it arrives where family should have been. "Thank you," I said. She began checking the system for my bag. While she typed, I plugged my phone into an outlet near the counter and tried Madison again. No answer. A minute later, a text came through. "Dad, please don't call repeatedly. Knox's family is under a lot of pressure." I read it twice. Not because it was complicated, because I wanted the second reading to hurt less. It did not. Della looked at my face and pretended not to. That was kind too. A man in a dark airport vest walked over a few minutes later. Broad shoulders, tired eyes, radio clipped to his chest. "Mason Pike," he said. "Night supervisor." I shook his hand. "Brant Ferguson." He glanced toward the curbside doors. "Mr. Ferguson, are you waiting for a ride?" I was. That one word told him enough. Mason nodded slowly. "Sir, no one should be waiting out there alone at midnight." I tried to smile. I used to say something like that when I worked this side of the glass. He looked at me more closely. "You worked airport operations?" "Safety, ground systems, a long time ago." "Then you know why I'm going to write this up." I raised a hand. "I don't want trouble for anyone." "It's not trouble," Mason said. "It's an assistance note. Elderly passenger, late arrival, no confirmed pickup, missing bag, phone low, shuttle referral. We write things down so people don't become invisible." That sentence stayed with me. We write things down so people don't become invisible. I had spent my whole career believing that. Incident reports were never just paperwork. They were memory with a timestamp. Della found my bag had been routed late through Phoenix. "Of course it went sightseeing," she said. "Some luggage has more vacation than the people who own it." I laughed then, a little. It surprised me. Mason helped me sit near a charging station while Della printed the baggage claim report. I took out Elaine's old boarding pass and unfolded it. The paper had softened at the creases. The little star Madison drew was still there on the back. Blue ink faded, but stubborn. Mason noticed it. "Special trip?" "My wife's first trip after I retired." He did not pry. Another kindness. My phone buzzed again, but it was not Madison. It was an automated voicemail transcript from the call she had ended. The last line made my thumb freeze. "He'll ruin the investor breakfast." There it was. Not in my imagination, not softened by shock. Words, captured by a machine that had more honesty than my family did that night. I did not play it for anyone, not yet. I just stared at the screen until it dimmed. Della came back with my paperwork. "You have somewhere safe tonight?" "I'll find a room." Mason shook his head. "We'll call a hotel shuttle. You're not wandering around with a dead phone and no bag." "I can manage." "I believe you," he said. "That doesn't mean you should have to." Around 1:30, a shuttle pulled up outside. The driver was a man named Gus Ralston, with a gray beard, a thermos in the cup holder, and a dashboard full of receipts. He loaded my small carry-on and said, "At midnight, sir, the airport tells more family secrets than Thanksgiving dinner." I looked back through the glass at Mason and Della, two strangers, both still standing there, until I got into the shuttle. My daughter had told me to find a hotel. They made sure I found one safely. That difference was the whole story. As the shuttle pulled away, I watched the terminal lights grow smaller behind me. I thought the worst part of that night was sleeping near the airport alone, until I learned my daughter had already told them I chose to stay there. By morning, my suitcase was still somewhere between Phoenix and somebody else's problem. That meant I had no navy jacket, no pressed shirt, no polished shoes Madison had quietly suggested I wear, just the clothes I had slept in, a carry-on with my toothbrush, and the old airport coat my daughter had already decided looked tired. I looked in the motel mirror and almost laughed, not because anything was funny, because there are moments when life strips a man down so honestly, all he can do is recognize himself. I shaved with a cheap razor from the front desk. I combed my hair with my fingers. Then I put Elaine's old boarding pass back in my wallet and took the shuttle to the hotel where the Harringtons were hosting their investor breakfast. Madison had sent me the address 3 days earlier, before her courage got smaller than her in-laws' expectations. The hotel lobby looked like it had been designed to make ordinary people lower their voices. Marble floor, glass flowers, soft music. Men and women in dark suits moved through the space with badges around their necks, holding coffee like it was part of the uniform. A sign near the ballroom read, "Harrington Meridian Passenger Services Partnership Breakfast." There it was. The family weekend had a logo. I saw Madison before she saw me. She stood beside Knox, smiling at a couple I did not know. Her hair was perfect. Her dress was pale blue. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, the way people do when they want to look united in photographs. Then she turned. Her smile stopped. Not because she was relieved I was safe, because she checked who else had noticed me. That small look hurt more than the night before. A daughter can forget to hug you. But when she looks around before she looks at your face, you learn where you stand. I walked toward her. "Morning, Maddie." She stepped close, keeping her voice low. "Dad, what are you doing here? You sent me the address." "I know, but I thought you'd rest this morning." "You told them that too?" Her eyes moved toward Knox. "Dad, please. I told them you wanted to rest near the airport. Don't correct it now." There it was, the second abandonment. The first one left me at the curb. This one tried to leave the truth there too. Before I could answer, Celia Harrington appeared with a smile so smooth it almost had no temperature. "Brant," she said, "we assumed you preferred a quiet night." I looked at her. "Do not put kindness on a choice you made without asking me." Her smile held, barely. Knox moved in, diplomatic and cold. "Mr. Ferguson, this weekend is very sensitive. We're trying to keep the focus on the partnership." Was I going to damage it by eating eggs? A waiter passing with orange juice almost slowed down. Knox did not smile. Madison whispered, "Dad, please." That word again. Please be smaller. Please be easier. Please do not make my new life look cruel. Then Alden Harrington crossed the lobby. He was tall, silver-haired, and expensive in that effortless way men become when other people have carried inconvenience away from them for decades. He looked at my coat, then my shoes, then my face. "Mr. Ferguson," he said, "travel can be hard at your age. So can being left at an airport." The air changed, not loudly, it just tightened. Alden glanced at Madison. She looked down. Celia touched her necklace. Knox cleared his throat. "These things happen with late flights." "No," I said. "Delays happen. Lost bags happen. Daughters telling fathers to find a hotel because they might ruin breakfast. That is a choice." Madison's face went pale. I almost stopped there. A father's anger has a dangerous edge. If you swing it too hard, you can cut the child and the truth at the same time. "So, I took a breath. Then, a small voice came from behind Madison. "Grandpa?" "Avery." My granddaughter came around the corner holding a little pastry and a napkin. She had grown taller since Christmas, but still had the same bright eyes. She ran to me. I bent slower than I used to, and she wrapped her arms around my neck. "Mom said you wanted to sleep at the airport hotel," she said. "Why didn't you come with us?" The room seemed to step backward. I looked at Madison. She was blinking too fast. I looked at Avery. Sometimes grown-ups choose the easiest story. Avery frowned. "That doesn't mean it's true." "No," I said softly. "It doesn't." Alden clapped his hands once, like a man resetting a meeting. "Shall we move inside? We have investors waiting." Family discomfort, in his world, was just another schedule item to push through. Inside the breakfast room, the tables were arranged with name cards, fruit plates, and small printed folders. Harrington Meridian's branding was everywhere. Clean lines, blue lettering, a slogan about making travel seamless. Seamless. That word almost made me laugh. Nothing about being 74 at an airport curb with a dying phone felt seamless. Madison tried to seat me near the back, not too far. Not obviously, just far enough to protect the image. I sat where she pointed because I wanted to watch. Watching had been my first profession. Alden began speaking about passenger experience, efficiency, senior market growth, airport hospitality, and future West Coast expansion. He talked about older travelers as a demographic, not people, a demographic. Then a woman near the screen mentioned Westward Air Group. I set my coffee down, slowly. The name moved through me like an old alarm. Westward, the company from years ago, the safety review, the turnaround procedure, the shares I had kept because I did not trust rushed people with passenger systems. Alden continued, "With today's airline shares review and proxy confirmation, we expect to clear the remaining procedural steps." Proxy confirmation. I looked at Madison. She was not looking at me. Knox was whispering to Celia. Celia's eyes slid toward my table, then away. For the first time since I had walked into that hotel, I stopped worrying about whether they would allow me to belong. I started wondering why my name had not come up yet. During a break, Celia pulled Madison aside near the hallway. I did not mean to listen, but old airport men hear what rooms try to hide. Celia said, "If he stays through the meeting, keep him away from Alden's table." Madison said nothing. That was the answer. When I heard the name of the airline holding company, I stopped worrying about whether they would let me sit at their table, and started wondering why my name had not come up yet. After the breakfast break, I stepped into a quiet hallway near the service elevator. There was a small table there with lemon water, empty coffee cups, and a silver trash can pretending it belonged in a palace. I took out my phone. My hands were steady. That surprised me. The night before, I had been the old man at the curb, holding a dying phone and wondering when his daughter had learned to leave him behind. Now I was standing inside a hotel full of people who thought my only problem was hurt feelings. They were wrong. Hurt feelings do not usually come with proxy notices. I opened my email and searched one word: Westward. Several old messages appeared: annual report, shareholder notice, safety covenant update. Then I saw the newest one, buried where I had not noticed it before. Proxy confirmation required. Passenger Services Partnership Vote. I read it twice. Then I read it a third time, because at 74, a man learns the difference between being surprised and being sloppy. The message was from Tessa Lane, Investor Relations and Corporate Counsel for Westward Air Group. I called the number at the bottom. A woman answered after 2 rings. "This is Tessa Lane." "My name is Brant Ferguson." Silence. Not long, but long enough. Then her voice changed. "Mr. Ferguson, I'm glad you called. We've been trying to confirm your proxy." I looked toward the ballroom doors. Through the glass, I could see Alden Harrington speaking with 2 investors, one hand in his pocket, smiling like the morning belonged to him. "Is Harrington Meridian the services partner?" I asked. "Yes," Tessa said. "Their proposed passenger services expansion is tied to Westward Air Group's preferred service share package." "Preferred service shares," I repeated. That is what Harrington calls them in their investor materials, she said carefully. But the voting class is still attached to the Legacy Safety Covenant. There it was. Not a miracle. Not revenge. A record. Old paper doing what old paper does when younger men forget it exists. I asked, "Do they know my name is in that class?" Another pause. They should have reviewed the registry. That is not what I asked. "No," she said. "I do not believe they understand your position." I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because arrogance has a sound when it hits procedure. Tessa continued, "To be clear, Mr. Ferguson, you cannot simply destroy a transaction by refusing to smile at it, but your proxy cannot be rushed past the safety covenant. If you require review before approval, the vote cannot proceed today." That mattered. I did not want fantasy power. I wanted real leverage. Real leverage has limits. That is what makes it dangerous to people who live by shortcuts. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I called June Holloway. June had worked with me years ago, back when ground operations still ran on radios, paper forms, stubborn supervisors, and coffee strong enough to peel paint. She answered with the same dry voice I remembered. "Brant Ferguson, either somebody died or somebody finally read a report you wrote." "Westward Air Group," I said. She went quiet. Then, "What happened?" "Harrington Meridian is trying to move a passenger services partnership." "Of course they are. You remember the safety covenant?" "Brant, I'm old. I forget why I walked into rooms. I do not forget that covenant." That made me breathe easier. June remembered everything. She remembered the rushed turnaround procedure, the staffing shortcut, the near incident nobody wanted in the press. She remembered how Westward had been low on cash, high on apologies, and very interested in giving safety advisors long-term shares instead of the money they did not have. "They called us overcautious back then," June said. "Then they put our names in the documents so investors could sleep at night." "They're calling me old now," June snorted. "They called your generation outdated until they needed the safety record you built." I looked down the hallway. A server passed by carrying a tray of pastries. For some reason, that ordinary little thing made the whole morning feel sharper. "What do I need?" I asked. "I'll send the file. Original covenant summary, your advisory letter, registry note, the amendment that says passenger handling partnerships require safety class proxy confirmation if ground assistance standards are affected. Send it to me and Tessa Lane." "Already opening my laptop," she said. "And Brant?" "Yes?" "Do not let polished people tell you safety is emotional." I hung up and stood there for a moment. "Before I tell you why my name was inside that airline shares meeting, let me ask you something. If your own daughter left you at an airport at midnight because her in-laws thought you would embarrass them, would you still protect her from the truth? Or would you let the room hear what happened? Tell me honestly what you would have done." When I walked back toward the ballroom, Knox Harrington intercepted me near the door. He wore concern, like a borrowed coat. "Mr. Ferguson," he said, "this next session is more technical. You may want to rest." "I spent 40 years resting after technical sessions," I said. "I think I can sit through one." His smile tightened. "I only mean it may not be relevant to you." "Strange," I said. "I was beginning to think the same thing about your hospitality." He looked away first. That told me more than any apology would have. Madison came from behind him, eyes wide, voice low. "Dad, please don't make this about last night." I looked at my daughter, the child who had drawn a star on her mother's boarding pass, the woman who had told me to find a hotel. "They made last night about this morning," I said. Her mouth opened. No answer came. Inside the ballroom, Alden had resumed his presentation. A slide behind him read, "Westward Air Group Strategic Passenger Services Partnership." He spoke about efficiency, growth, premium travel experience, senior traveler demand. He made older people sound like a revenue category with shoes. Then the ballroom doors opened again. A woman in a charcoal suit entered with a slim folder in one hand. She did not hurry. People like Tessa Lane do not need to hurry when the room is already waiting on what they carry. Alden noticed her first. "Tessa," he said warmly. "Perfect timing." "I hope so," she replied. Her tone did not match his smile. She walked to the front table, spoke quietly to an assistant, then turned toward the room. "We need to confirm one matter before the proxy session proceeds." Alden's smile remained, but his eyes sharpened. "Of course." Tessa opened the folder. "Is Mr. Brant Ferguson present?" The room shifted. Not much, just enough. Knox turned toward me. Celia's face lost color under the makeup. Madison looked as if someone had opened a door beneath her feet. Alden frowned. "Mr. Ferguson?" "Yes," Tessa said. "Brant Ferguson?" I stood slowly. Not for drama. At my age, standing quickly is just asking your knees to file a complaint. "I'm here," I said. Tessa looked directly at me. "Thank you, Mr. Ferguson." Alden gave a short laugh. "There must be some confusion. Mr. Ferguson is a family guest." I looked at him. For the first time that morning, I did not feel like the man they had left at the curb. I felt like the man I had been before they decided age made me decorative. Tessa closed the folder halfway. "He may be a family guest, Mr. Harrington, but according to the registry, he is also a legacy voting shareholder in the class required for this partnership review." The room went silent. Celia gripped the back of a chair. Knox stopped pretending to smile. Madison looked at me, and I saw the question in her face before she asked it. "Dad, what did they not know about you?" I put Elaine's old boarding pass back into my wallet. Tessa Lane looked across the room and asked, "Is Mr. Brant Ferguson present?" For the first time that morning, the Harringtons stopped looking at me like luggage. For a moment, nobody moved. Not Alden, not Celia, not Knox, not even Madison. A room full of people who had spent the morning arranging importance suddenly had no idea where to put the old man in the wrinkled coat. Tessa Lane stood at the front with the folder open. She did not look impressed by the silence. People who work with shareholder registries are used to rich families discovering paper, does not care about their feelings. Alden recovered first. "There must be a misunderstanding," he said, still smiling. "Mr. Ferguson is my daughter-in-law's father." Tessa nodded. "Yes." "And a guest?" "Yes." "And not part of Harrington Meridian?" "Correct." Alden's smile relaxed, as if he had found the exit. Then Tessa added, "He is, however, a legacy voting shareholder in Westward Air Group, and his proxy confirmation is required before this partnership vote can proceed." The room went quiet again. This time, it was not confusion. It was calculation. I could almost hear numbers moving behind their eyes. Knox turned toward Madison. "You knew?" Madison shook her head. "No." She looked at me as if I had hidden a weapon in my suitcase. Maybe I had. Only mine was made of old work, old records, and the part of a man's life his family stopped asking about. Alden stepped closer to Tessa. "What size position are we discussing?" Tessa kept her voice even. "The issue is not merely size. Mr. Ferguson's shares belong to the legacy safety class group created during Westward's restructuring period." Alden's face tightened. I knew that expression. I had seen it on executives when they learned the shortcut had a signature requirement. He said, "This is an administrative matter." I looked at him. Leaving me at the airport was administrative too, I suppose. A few heads turned. Celia's lips parted. Knox looked down at the table. Madison whispered, "Dad." I did not look away from Alden. He had treated me like something that could be placed outside until the important people finished eating. Now he wanted the room to pretend last night was separate from this morning. It was not. Alden lowered his voice. "Mr. Ferguson, perhaps we should speak privately." "You had privacy last night," I said. "You used it to leave me at the curb." Celia stepped in, smooth and pale. "Brant, this is not the appropriate place." I turned to her. "No, the airport curb was not the appropriate place either." That sentence sat down before I did. Nobody rushed to pick it up. Tessa cleared her throat, professional enough to keep the meeting from becoming a family brawl. "For clarity," she said, "Mr. Ferguson cannot unilaterally destroy this transaction. but his proxy is required for the safety class review. Without it, today's vote cannot move forward. Alden nodded too quickly. Then we will simply confirm the proxy. No, I said. One word. It did more than shouting would have. Alden looked at me. No? I have not reviewed the current passenger services terms. Knox finally spoke. With respect, sir, these are complex operational documents. I almost smiled. Complex operational documents were where men like Knox liked to hide simple risks. I spent 40 years reading the lines people skipped because they were boring, I said. Do not use complexity like a curtain. Tessa's eyes flicked toward me. Not a smile, but close. One of the investors, a woman near the center table, raised her hand slightly. Is there a safety concern? Alden answered before anyone else could. No, this is a family misunderstanding overlapping with routine process. I looked at the investor. There is a respect concern tied to passenger care. Alden's jaw hardened. That is not the same thing. It becomes the same thing when the company selling care leaves vulnerable people to figure things out alone. Celia's face flushed. Madison stared at the carpet. That hurt more than if she had defended them, because silence, after a certain point, becomes a choice with good manners. Alden placed both hands on the table. Mr. Ferguson, Harrington Meridian serves thousands of travelers. We cannot have an entire partnership delayed because of a painful family moment. A painful family moment, I repeated. The phrase was polished enough to slide over blood. I took out my phone. Not to play anything. Not yet. Just to hold it. At midnight, your family called me a problem for breakfast. This morning, your company calls older travelers a market. I am trying to understand which one you believe. That one landed. Even Knox looked uncomfortable. Tessa closed the folder halfway. Until Mr. Ferguson confirms proxy direction, we are paused. Alden's voice cooled. Then perhaps Mr. Ferguson needs time. I have had time, I said. I had it at the curb. Madison flinched. Good. Not because I wanted to hurt her, because truth has to land somewhere before it can change anything. Knox took one step toward me. Mr. Ferguson, Madison was under pressure. Last night got messy. Messy as spilling coffee. I looked at my daughter then. Leaving your father outside arrivals and telling people he chose it is not messy. It is a decision. Madison's eyes filled, but she still did not speak. Avery was not in the room, thank God. Some truths should reach children after adults have stopped hiding behind them. Alden tried one more time. Let us not turn an investor meeting into a family hearing. You already did, I said. You just expected the family part to stay outside. The investor woman leaned toward Tessa. What happens if the proxy is not confirmed today? Tessa answered, The vote is delayed. The partnership can be revised, reviewed, or rescheduled. Alden's head turned sharply. Revised? Tessa said, If safety class holders raise review conditions, yes. Knox's face changed. He finally understood this was not just about me being insulted. It was about the deal being slowed by the very standards Harrington Meridian had been trying to brand itself around. Passenger care, senior access, ground assistance, words on slides, until an old man at the airport made them real. Celia whispered to Alden, but I heard enough. Control the tone. Alden nodded slightly. Then he faced the room with a practiced expression. We deeply respect Mr. Ferguson's long career. Emotions are high because of a travel miscommunication. We will handle the personal side with care. There it was, the rewrite. Soft, clean, false. I looked at Madison. She knew. She knew what he was doing. And still, for one long second, she let him do it. That was the second time that morning I felt left somewhere. Not at the airport this time. In the truth. Tessa saved the room from itself. For the record, Mr. Ferguson's proxy is not confirmed. The vote cannot proceed. Alden's smile finally vanished. The whole morning shifted. The old man with the suitcase was no longer decoration. I was delay. I was review. I was the name in the registry they had failed to read. I stood slowly. I am not signing anything today, I said. Not until I see the passenger care terms, the ground assistance standards, and every safety review Harrington Meridian wants to call routine. Alden stared at me. You would risk the partnership over this? No, I said. You risked it when you thought care was only useful on a slide. Tessa closed her folder. Then this session is paused. Those words did what my anger could not. They made the powerful wait. And suddenly, the old man with the suitcase had the only seat that mattered. The meeting did not end. It scattered. That is what powerful people do when the room stops obeying them. They do not panic in public. They create smaller rooms. Alden Harrington pulled Knox and Celia into a private breakout suite near the ballroom. Madison followed them, not because she was invited, but because by then she looked like a woman watching two families separate inside her own chest. I was left near the hallway with a cup of coffee I had not touched. Tessa Lane stayed close enough to be professional, far enough to give me dignity. Mr. Ferguson, she said, your proxy is still valid. Nothing about this pause changes that. I know. But knowing something on paper is not the same as feeling steady in your bones. For one moment, I was tired. Not sleepy. Tired in the old way. The way a man gets tired when he realizes the people who should have protected his name are now deciding how to explain him away. Tessa looked toward the closed door. They may try to reframe this. I spent 40 years listening to executives reframe safety problems as communication problems. She gave me the smallest smile. Then you know the sound. Yes, I said. It sounds expensive. Down the hall, a woman in a cream blazer hurried past with a tablet tucked under her arm. I had not seen her before. She did not look like an investor. She looked like the person investors hire when the truth needs makeup. A few minutes later, the printer near the service alcove clicked on. One page slid out, then another. No one came for them. Old habits do not retire. I walked over. The top page had no company letterhead, just a heading. Possible framing. Travel fatigue/elderly. Confusion/airport miscommunication. For a second, I did not understand what I was reading. Then I understood too well. They were not going to argue that they had treated me well. That would have required evidence. They were going to suggest I was too old to understand what happened. Too tired. Too emotional. Maybe confused. Maybe mistaken about the call. Maybe unclear about the airport. Maybe not reliable enough for investors to trust. I read the line again. Elderly confusion. Those two words did something the airport curb had not done. They made my hands shake. Because being left outside at midnight is cruelty. But having people use your age to question your mind, that is erasure. I had lived long enough to know how easily the world turns gray hair into doubt. A younger man forgets a name, and he is busy. An older man forgets a name, and people look at each other. A younger woman repeats a story, and she is charming. An older person repeats one, and the room begins taking inventory of their competence. I stood there with that page in my hand and felt smaller than I had felt at the curb. They had left me at the airport because I looked old. Now they wanted to use that same age to make my mind look unreliable. The breakout door opened. The woman in the cream blazer stepped out first. Celia followed, then Knox, then Madison. My daughter saw the page in my hand. Her face changed. Dad? I lifted the paper. Is this yours? She looked at it, then toward the room behind her. That's not what I agreed to. That is not what I asked. Her eyes filled. I didn't write it. No, I said. You only stood in the room where it was being written. She flinched. Good. Not because I wanted to wound her, because truth has to touch skin before it reaches conscience. Knox stepped forward. Mr. Ferguson, Lorna Vance is just helping us manage the communication problem. There is no communication problem. Celia's voice came smooth and strained. Brant, you were tired. Anyone would be after a late flight. I was tired, I said. I was not confused. The woman in the cream blazer appeared behind them. Lorna Vance. She looked at me the way a doctor looks at a symptom. Mr. Ferguson, no one is attacking you. I held up the page. You should choose another sentence. Her mouth tightened. We are trying to prevent a family misunderstanding from damaging a serious business transaction. A family misunderstanding? Yes. My daughter told me to find a hotel. Your people called me a breakfast problem. I was left outside arrivals with a dying phone and no checked bag. Which part confused you? Lorna's eyes flicked to Celia. Celia said nothing. Alden came to the doorway last. He saw the page, then me, then Tessa, who had moved closer. His face hardened. That document was internal. So was the phone call, I said. It still happened. Madison whispered, Dad, please. I looked at her. That word has done enough work for one weekend. She covered her mouth. For the first time, she looked less afraid of embarrassing the Harringtons and more afraid of what she had become to avoid it. Then Avery appeared at the end of the hallway. No one had noticed her slip out of the family waiting area. She held a small pastry in one hand and her tablet in the other. Grandpa? Every adult froze. Children have a way of walking into lies before anyone has swept the floor. Avery looked at the paper in my hand, then at her mother. Are they saying you're confused? Madison turned pale. No, honey. Avery looked at me. Mom said you were just tired. I folded the paper slowly. I was tired, I said, but I knew where I was. Avery's lower lip trembled. Why didn't anyone bring you with us? No one answered. That was the cleanest answer in the hallway. I knelt as much as my knees allowed and touched her shoulder. That question belongs to the grown-ups. She looked at Madison. Madison started crying then. Quietly. But tears are not repair. They are only the sound a conscience makes when it finally catches up. I stood and looked at Alden. You tried to move a passenger services deal past the very people your company claims to serve. Then, when one of those people had a vote, you tried to make his age the issue. Alden's voice was low. You are taking this too far. No, I said. I am taking it back to the record. I turned to Tessa. I want Mason Pike's airport assistance note included. Tessa nodded. And Della Morris's baggage report. Of course. The shuttle record from Gus Ralston. Yes. The voicemail transcript. Madison closed her eyes. And June Holloway's safety file. Tessa's expression sharpened. I have already received it. That surprised Alden. Good. Some men only understand speed when it stops working for them. Lorna tried one last time. Mr. Ferguson, public escalation could make you look vindictive. I looked at her. Leaving me outside made me look disposable. I prefer vindictive. For the first time that day, Knox almost spoke against his family. Almost. His mouth opened, then closed. I saw the battle in him, ambition on one side, shame on the other. Shame had not won yet, but it had entered the room. I put the talking points page into my folder. Elaine's old boarding pass was still in my wallet. I touched it through the fabric of my coat, just to feel something that came from a time before people treated arrival like a branding risk. Then I looked at Madison. My age is not your excuse. She nodded, crying harder, but I was not ready to comfort her, not yet. Comfort given too quickly can become permission. I turned toward the meeting room. They had made my age the argument. Fine. Then I would bring the record of what that age had survived. I walked back toward that meeting room with a folder in one hand and 74 years behind me. That sounds dramatic. It was not. It was just a tired old man deciding that if they wanted to make age the issue, then age was going to bring receipts. Tessa Lane met me near the door. Her expression was professional, but her voice had softened. Mr. Ferguson, your proxy is valid. Your capacity is not in question from our side. I handed her the page from the printer. Travel fatigue. Elderly confusion. Airport miscommunication. She read it once. Then her face went still. If they intend to challenge your clarity, she said, they will need more than public relations language. That was my thought. Tessa opened her folder. I also received the file from June Holloway. Good. Mr. Ferguson, your record is stronger than they realize. I looked through the glass at the room. Alden was speaking to an investor with his hand on the back of a chair, already acting like the morning could be repaired if everyone just used the right words. That was the Harrington way. They did not clean a stain. They moved a vase over it. Tessa and I stepped inside. Lorna Vance was near the screen, tablet in hand, speaking in a calm voice. There was an unfortunate travel misunderstanding involving a late arrival and possible fatigue. We should be careful not to let a private family issue interfere with a sound business partnership. I waited until she finished. Then I said, "If you are going to use my age, at least use my whole record." The room turned. Lorna blinked. Alden's jaw tightened. Madison looked like she wanted the floor to take her. Tessa placed the first document on the table. Airport assistance note from Mason Pike, night supervisor at San Jose International. She read the key line. Passenger Brant Ferguson was alert, coherent, and alone at curbside after midnight. Requested assistance politely. Reported no confirmed pickup. Phone battery low. Checked baggage delayed. I did not look at Madison. Not yet. Tessa placed another page down. Baggage delay record from Della Morris. Passenger provided correct flight details, claim number, contact information, and medication concerns. Then another. Hotel shuttle record from Gus Ralston. Pickup from airport after family transportation failed to arrive. Alden exhaled through his nose. This is excessive. No, I said. This is what happens when people who abandoned the record try to rewrite it. Tessa continued. Voicemail transcript from the arrival call. Celia's hand moved to her necklace. Tessa did not play the audio. She only read the line that mattered. He'll ruin the investor breakfast. The room went quiet. Celia closed her eyes. Knox looked at Madison. Madison looked at me. I finally let her. There was shame in her face now. Real shame. But shame is not the same as courage. Courage speaks before evidence forces it to. Tessa turned to the screen. We also need to address Mr. Ferguson's shareholder status. Alden stepped forward. We recognize Mr. Ferguson holds a position. We are prepared to resolve that administratively. Not administratively, Tessa said. Substantively. June Holloway appeared on the video screen. White hair. Reading glasses. The same dry look she had worn through 30 years of men asking if safety was really necessary. Brant, she said. June. She looked at the room. I understand someone has questions about Mr. Ferguson's clarity. Lorna said, No one is questioning him personally. June looked at the paper in my hand. That page has the word elderly on it. Don't insult the room twice. A few investors shifted. June continued. Brant Ferguson spent over 40 years in aviation safety, ground operations review, emergency response planning, and passenger handling compliance. During Westward Air Group's restructuring period, he identified a turnaround procedure risk that internal teams had minimized. Alden's face had gone flat. June did not care. If that shortcut had continued, the company could have faced a serious passenger safety event. The safety advisory group was compensated partly through long-term voting shares because Westward lacked cash and needed credibility. She paused. That class of shares was tied to a safety covenant. Knox leaned forward. What exactly does that mean? Tessa answered before June could. It means this is not a passive shareholding for dividend purposes only. Partnerships affecting passenger handling, ground assistance, senior access, or airport hospitality require safety class proxy confirmation if standards may be reduced or changed. Alden said, No standards are being reduced. I looked at him. Then you should not be afraid to review them. He glared. There it was, the real conversation beneath the polished one. They had not feared my confusion. They had feared my experience. June's voice came again through the screen. They called your generation outdated until they needed the safety record you built, Brant. I looked down. Not because I was embarrassed, because for a moment I saw the old nights again. Fluorescent lights, bad coffee. Men in expensive shirts saying, It'll probably be fine, and me saying, probably is not a safety plan. Tessa placed the shareholder registry on the table. Mr. Ferguson's proxy is valid. His vote cannot be separated from the passenger care review under the safety covenant. Alden's smile was gone now, all of it. He looked at Tessa. Are you saying one man can delay this transaction? Tessa replied, I am saying the documents your team relied on require his confirmation before the vote proceeds. I added, I cannot destroy your company with one signature, Alden, but I can stop you from rushing a passenger services deal past the safety review you wanted to shorten. That sentence hit the investors harder than the airport story, because now it was not only personal, it was business, it was process, it was risk. One investor asked, was the safety review shortened? Knox opened his mouth. Alden answered first. The timeline was optimized. June laughed once from the screen. Optimized is what people call shortened when lawyers are listening. For the first time all morning, I almost smiled. Almost. Madison stood near the wall, silent and pale. Avery was not in the room, but I thought of her question in the hallway. Why didn't anyone bring you with us? That was still the question under everything. Passenger care, family care, airport care. It all came down to whether someone remembered to bring another human being home. Lorna tried again. Mr. Ferguson, surely you understand the reputational damage of making this personal. I turned toward her. You tried to make my age the reputation. I am making the record the answer. No one spoke for a second. Then Tessa closed her folder. Given the safety covenant, this meeting cannot proceed to final vote until Mr. Ferguson either confirms proxy approval or submits conditions for review. Alden looked at me. What conditions? I did not answer immediately. I wanted him to wait. Not out of cruelty, out of balance. He had made me wait under airport lights. He could stand in a carpeted room and wait for a complete sentence. I want the passenger care standards in writing, I said. Senior traveler assistance, late-night vulnerable passenger protocol, independent safety review, ground assistance staffing, emergency hotel and shuttle support when elderly passengers are stranded. Alden said, This is beyond the scope. No, I said. This is the scope you advertised in nicer words. Tessa nodded. The requested items are within the safety covenant's reviewable areas. That was when Alden Harrington finally understood. I was not there to beg. I was not there to explode. I was not there to ruin him because he hurt me. I was there to make the system tell the truth, and systems frighten men like Alden when they stop bending. Tessa closed the folder and said, Mr. Ferguson's proxy is valid, but under the safety covenant, his vote cannot be separated from the passenger care review. And that was when Alden Harrington finally stopped smiling. Alden Harrington looked at me like I had moved from inconvenience to infection. That was the first honest expression I had seen on him all morning. No polished smile, no chairman's warmth. Just a man realizing the old passenger he wanted, hidden from breakfast, had become the condition attached to his deal. Tessa Lane stood beside the screen with the safety covenant folder in her hands. Mr. Ferguson has submitted review conditions, she said. This meeting may continue only if those conditions are addressed in writing before proxy approval. Alden's voice stayed smooth, barely. We are happy to discuss reasonable concerns. Good, I said. Then let's begin with the unreasonable part. He blinked. The part where my daughter left me at the airport at midnight and your family tried to call it confusion. The room went still. Madison was standing near the wall. Knox was beside her, but for once he did not look like he knew where to place his hands. Celia sat straight, both palms folded on the table, like manners could protect her from memory. Lorna Vance had gone quiet. That was wise. Alden said, Mr. Ferguson, the personal matter has been unfortunate, but no. One word. Old men learn the value of short words when long ones have been used to bury them. This was not unfortunate. A flat tire is unfortunate. A delayed flight is unfortunate. A father left outside arrivals because he might embarrass investors is a decision. An investor near the back shifted in his chair. Tessa did not interrupt. She knew the record needed room to breathe. I looked at Madison, not with anger this time, with the kind of disappointment that had no sharp edge left. "Tell them." Her lips trembled. "Dad, tell them the truth before they write another version for you." Knox touched her elbow. She pulled away. That small movement said more than any speech. Madison stepped forward. Her voice was low at first. "My father did not choose to stay near the airport." Celia closed her eyes. Madison swallowed. "I told him to find a hotel. I did not pick him up. I let everyone believe he wanted a quiet night because I was ashamed to admit I had left him there." Alden stared at the table. Madison kept going, and each word seemed to cost her something she had been borrowing from the Harringtons. "I was afraid he would not fit the image this family wanted for today. That was wrong." She looked at me then. He was not confused. I was. The room stayed silent. Not comfortable silence. Necessary silence. Celia finally spoke. "Brant, I said something cruel." I waited. She had spent years choosing words like jewelry. I wanted to see whether she could choose one like a tool. "I said you would ruin the investor breakfast." "You did." "Yes." "Were you wrong because I owned the shares?" Her face tightened. That was the question she did not want. "No," she said at last. "I was wrong because a father should not be left alone at midnight." I nodded once. Not forgiveness. Acknowledgement. Those are different gates. Alden sat back. "What exactly are you asking for?" "Not a performance," I said. "A correction." I turned to Tessa. She opened the document on the screen. I read each term slowly. "Senior Passenger Care Clause." Alden's jaw moved. "Independent safety review before implementation." Knox looked at the slide. "Night staff response protocol for vulnerable or stranded older travelers." One investor began taking notes. "Emergency hotel and shuttle assistance when senior passengers have no pickup, lost luggage, dead phones, or late-night travel disruption." Celia's face changed at that one. Maybe she remembered the curb. Maybe she remembered that I had needed strangers. "And public language," I said, stating that the proxy delay resulted from shareholder review of passenger care standards. Not elderly confusion, not travel fatigue, not a family misunderstanding. Lorna's pen stopped moving. Alden said, "You are adding cost." "No," I said. "I am naming the cost you planned to hide." That sentence landed harder than I expected, because people in rooms like that understand hidden costs. They just prefer them hidden in other people. Tessa added, "These requests fall within the safety covenant's reviewable areas." Alden turned to her. "You support this?" "I support the documents," she said, "and the documents support his right to request review." Knox finally spoke. "Dad, we should take the terms." Alden looked at his son. It was the first time that morning I saw Knox choose discomfort over obedience. Not heroism, not redemption, but a beginning. Madison looked at him, surprised. He did not meet her eyes. Maybe shame had finally found its way into the part of him ambition could not lock. Alden stood. "This will delay the timeline." "Then your timeline was too fragile," I said. He glared at me. I did not glare back. At 74, a man saves his energy for places it can matter. Tessa slid a pen across the table. "If the terms are accepted in principle, counsel can draft written amendments before proxy submission." Alden looked at the pen, then at me. "You would really hold the vote until this is written?" "I was held at the curb until strangers helped me," I said. "You can wait for paperwork." No one argued. That was the sound of power changing hands without anyone raising their voice. Madison wiped her face. "Dad, I'm sorry." I heard the words. I wanted them. But wanting an apology does not mean it can repair everything the moment it arrives. "I believe you are sorry," I said. Her face lifted. "Then, but sorry is not a shuttle. It does not automatically bring someone home." She cried harder. I did not move toward her. Not yet. Comfort given too quickly can become permission. The meeting shifted into process after that. Drafting notes, council review, investor questions, safety language. terms that would force Harrington Meridian to treat older travelers not as a market segment, but as human beings who might need help after midnight. Alden hated every second of it. Good. Some medicine should taste like the illness it treats. Near the end, Tessa asked, "Mr. Ferguson, will you sign once the terms are documented?" I took Elaine's old boarding pass from my wallet and laid it on the table. The little blue star Madison had drawn on the back was faded, but still there. "This was from the first trip my wife and I took after I retired," I said. "My daughter drew that star when she was 6, so her mother could always find her way home." Madison covered her mouth. I looked around the room. Travel is not just movement, it is trust. Someone leaves, someone arrives, someone is supposed to come to the curb. Then I slid the pen back across the table. "I will not sign the proxy this morning. Put it in writing first." And for once, the Harringtons had to wait. The deal did not die. That matters. Some people think revenge means burning the whole building down, then warming your hands over the ashes. I have lived too long to believe that. Real justice is quieter. It changes the lock. It changes the form. It changes the sentence nobody wanted written down. 2 weeks after that meeting, Harrington Meridian sent the revised partnership documents back to Westward Air Group. This time, the language was different. There was a senior passenger care clause. There was an independent safety review. There was a night staff response protocol for older travelers stranded after delays, missed pickups, lost luggage, dead phones, or late arrivals. There was also an emergency hotel and shuttle assistance fund. Alden Harrington did not like it. I did not need him to like it. I only needed him to sign it. Celia sent me a card. It was short, stiff, and written in perfect handwriting. But one line was honest. No father should have been left alone at midnight. I kept the card. Not because it fixed anything, because sometimes accountability starts as a sentence people can barely force themselves to write. Madison came to my house 3 Sundays later. No perfect dress, no polished smile. Just my daughter, standing on my porch with red eyes and the tired face of someone who had finally stopped defending the wrong people. She held the handle from my lost suitcase. The airline had found the bag later, but the handle had cracked somewhere along the way. "I told myself it was one night," she said. I let her speak. "I told myself you were strong enough. I told myself you always figured things out." Her voice broke. That was how I made cowardice sound practical. That line hurt. Because it was true, I said, "You did not leave me because I was weak. You left me because you trusted me enough to wait." She cried then. I did not rush to hold her, not because I wanted to punish her, because forgiveness given too quickly can become another way of avoiding the truth. Avery came with her that day. She handed me a drawing of an airport, with a little blue cars waiting at the curb. Across the top, she had written, "Grandpa comes home." That broke something open in me. Small hands can sometimes repair what adult pride cannot. I put the drawing on my refrigerator. Madison looked at it and whispered, "Can we start over?" "No," I said gently. "We start from here." That is different. Starting over pretends nothing happened. Starting from here means the truth comes with us. The Ferguson Stranded Seniors Travel Fund began that summer. Mason Pike helped design the airport response checklist. Della Morris helped train baggage staff to notice older passengers who looked calm but had nowhere to go. Gus Ralston became one of the first shuttle partners. June Holloway helped write the safety culture notes. Tessa Lane made sure the passenger care terms stayed attached to the partnership documents, not buried in some forgotten appendix. The fund paid for hotel vouchers, late-night shuttle rides, phone charging stations, volunteer call desks, and emergency support for older travelers who had been stranded, forgotten, or quietly abandoned between arrival and home. I framed Elaine's old boarding pass and hung it in the little fund office. The front still showed our first trip after I retired. The back still had Madison's crooked blue star. Under it, I placed 5 words. No one should wait alone. That old boarding pass was not a ticket anymore. It was proof that someone once waited for me without being asked. And now, I wanted it to remind other families what waiting should mean. Because family is not measured by who looks good at breakfast. It is measured by who still comes to the curb when the flight is late. The revenge was not that they needed my vote. The revenge was that, because of that vote, no one in their system could call an old person at the curb invisible again. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and for listening to my story all the way through. Please tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and what time it is where you live right now. If this story moved you even a little, please don't forget to subscribe to Final Act Revenge. Another story is waiting for you on your screen right now. YouTube believes you may enjoy it.